Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April 14th, 2026 Redevelopment Agency meeting. This is the 6 o'clock meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all board members are present. If you would please silence your phones for the meeting, that would be wonderful. Our opening ceremony is, we'll turn the time to Vice Chair Graff to give us the pledge, or administer the pledge.
Please rise and join me if you would, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Now, if you would please just join us for a moment of silence. Thank you. Next is acknowledgements. Board members, are there any acknowledgements that we'd like to make today? Okay, I guess we'll move on. Next item is the approval of minutes for the regular meeting of February 10th, 2026. Board Member Lopez.
Thank you. I review the minutes for February 10, 2026 as found in the current. I move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Lopez and seconded by Board Member Myers to approve the minutes. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next item is the reports from the administration, the Exchange Building Land Transfer and Development Agreement. And we have Jared Johnson here to present to us. This was an item that we discussed at some length in the work session, and I expect we'll probably continue some of those discussions here. So if you give us your presentation, and we'll keep firing questions at you.
Sounds great. Thank you, members of the board. We'll go through this presentation. You've seen this a little bit. We'll go through and add some additional information kind of as we go through. But the request before you is the execution of a land transfer and development agreement between 600 Exchange LLC and the Ogden City RDA on the Exchange building. So just recap of some of the historical nature of the building and how it came to be. So it kind of went through when the railroad came through, and then in 1892 the livestock trading area was designated, which Ogden became a very big part of it. And that is what this building and the surrounding area served for many years and did well until the closure in the early 1970s when the stockyards were no longer being utilized for that same use. And then since that time, they got used for different, lots of different mixed uses that happened down there. This was the old Coliseum that unfortunately was destroyed by fire. This hosted for a while like a skating rink and some other things after it had closed, some other events that took place down in this area. Again, just some of the pictures of some of the old historical photos of some of the items that were taking place in that area. Just kind of a statement about the impact that happened in this area at the time with the industry, with the stockyards, and what it symbolized for us for economic importance during that time frame. Again, and I apologize because I feel like you have seen these a couple times. Maybe I'm going a little quicker than I should through some of this. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Again, just talking about the relevance of it. It is interesting. This building was also designed by Leslie Hodgson that designed many of the historical buildings that are in Ogden City. And it is another one that we are hoping to preserve. Just kind of talking about the architectural of it. And I can honestly say that I wish that picture that it still looked that good today. Unfortunately, it does not. And then we're just talking about kind of some of the different things that we've done with that area throughout time and what we've been doing with it lately. Unfortunately, this is the current state of the interior and some of the exterior. It has been very, very difficult. This building does get broken into on almost a daily basis. It has been difficult for our public, or not our public services, but our fire and EMS and our police, specifically police, are down there quite a bit for calls of service. Recently, they did have to make contact with 3 juveniles that had broken into the building and got up on the roof and were lighting fireworks off of the top of the roof. It is a dangerous situation. It is not a place that we would hope to continue to perpetuate that type of activity. So we are hoping to find a way forward for it. Just a quick statement, preservation is really, it's not about the past, it's about the future and how can we continue it on. This was a rendering of what we did, what the city did in 2013 when they acquired the property, created the redevelopment area. This layout is not exactly the way it is laid out today. It is similar. The streets are as shown here, but the building layouts have shifted with the lots and the way that they got developed out there. But it is a close reflection. This was the rendering that was done at the time.
May I ask a question real quick on that slide with that rendering?
Mm-hmm.
The parcel of land is as one right now in our packet, and I'm just curious in this rendering if it's 2 parcels of land with the stock exchange, then you have the driveway, and then you have another building.
Yeah, the rendering would show that that was a possibility.
Okay.
But you are correct. It is one contiguous parcel at
Okay,
this time. It's about 1.81
1.81,
acres. Yeah.
right? Thank you.
This is just some of the work that we've done down there. We have with the trails and then some of the signage and just there's kind of the walking path and some learning tour. You can kind of go through and walk the site and just read the information about what used to be there, what happened at this location. We have preserved all of those stairways, which were actually livestock ramps that you see right there in the background. When they would pull the railroad or the rail cars in there, they would open the doors at the edges of those ramps and they would shuffle the livestock up and down those ramps. And those have been, they're still out there. You can go see those today. We have some of the old troughs. And anyway, just trying to preserve some of that history of the area as we start to adapt it into current day uses. So that kind of brings us to where we are now with the redevelopment. I like this picture because it shows the coins that are on top of the building. Some of them are missing. We've picked a lot of them up and have kept those with the intent that they would get reinstalled. But they have all of the heads of the different livestock when it was being used for that, and that is the intent to reinstall and preserve those. So we kind of talked about how we got to where we are, and so now you're seeing some slides in here about a company by the name of GMRE. So this is an aerospace and defense company. They have expressed interest in wanting to relocate their corporate headquarters to Ogden City. Currently, they're not located in Ogden. They are a growing and expanding company. They would bring in 60 jobs immediately, and then, like I said, they are growing and expanding, so those would grow. They've outgrown their current location, which is why they've expressed an interest in this facility. Just a little bit more about them. I won't spend a ton of time going through all of their stuff, but like I said, they are an aerospace and defense company. Parker Judd is their current, he is the current president. It was an interesting when we met with them. This is, as we mentioned before, this is a picture of his family. His grandfather used to trade and take livestock to this location way back in the day. And then Thane Fisher of Fisher Reagan Enterprises is who we have been working with as the developer. He's created an LLC that would be 600 Exchange LLC that this building could potentially be conveyed to. Thane's done a lot of work in Ogden City on preserving historic buildings. I think he does a great job. It was really interesting, as we talked about in the work session, how it kind of came full circle and how he got back involved in this, because he was not the individual that we were immediately talking to when we were trying to identify opportunities to preserve this building. This just kind of goes through the proposed approach on what we would go through and do. The initial stabilization basically would just go in and take care of urgent things that are happening right now that need to be addressed, and start to get those things stabilized as we continue to finish up design work and then the plans for the permitting and how that goes through. It talks about in here that we'd also work with Landmark SHPO, which we have been and will continue to do. And then Thane, as an individual, has had a really good track record of these types of projects. So the architectural rehabilitation, like I said, that's the important part. As it was identified earlier, the exterior and the entry are on the register for a historic. The intent is to restore them to, and that's the requirement, to restore them how they were. And so that's what we want to go, that's what we want to do. The building itself, like I said, would be the corporate offices for GMRE if this was approved. And also that's one of the things that we didn't kind of touch on before, but right now, if you were to approve this as a board, we would convey this to 600 Exchange LLC, which is Thane Fisher's company, right? He would go in, do the construction, do the work, restore the building, get it back to a usable state, get it into these professional offices so that then this company can go in. And then he has an agreement with them that, and I don't have their agreement, but he has an agreement with them where over time they would basically be leasing, renting from him, but then they have the option to purchase it and own it outright, which was kind of the goal from before. Instead of just trying to find a development company to give it to and then not know what was going to happen with it or what was it going to be, is actually identify a use that would endure, and then what would that be. And so we've tried to find a way to facilitate that transaction. Another thing that's really interesting, or not interesting, but funny about the building right now, and it's been problematic for some of the other properties that are around it, but because the building is open in the way that it's open right now, if you go in the building, you will hear them, you will not see them, but there are a lot of bats inside the walls. They don't go inside the building, but they crawl into the crevices between the windows and the brick on the exterior, and then they kind of hibernate in there. We realized last year that this was a problem. I talked with Mayor Nadolski, and he got me in contact with some of the reps that he has that help specialize in that. And we talked to them about procedures, about what we could do, because the intent was not to harm them or what we do with them. And so last fall, we tried to monitor it because there are many bats that will migrate and move out. One of the things that has been not great about not having a winter this year is we're about a month ahead of schedule from where we were, and so we're already starting to get them back, but they've given us tools that we can go through to help non-lethally help evacuate them out of the building and then not let them back in so that they can find a different home.
Are they just our local fruit bats?
I don't know the species. I couldn't tell you that part.
All right.
But there's
I'm just glad you said bats and not ghosts or something.
I was waiting for ghosts.
Well,
yeah.
Expecting ghosts.
It is also currently identified as one of the most haunted places, and that's why it gets broken into nonstop. And so that's problematic. It is concerning for us. We are always worried that somebody is going to get hurt in there. We don't very often catch people in there, but there's a sign every day. They break the boards off, they cut the fence, they do whatever, and it's literally a daily occurrence. Code enforcement and PD spend a lot of time down there, and we've spent a lot of abatement money to try to keep remedying that each and every day. I like the comment that Kelly had put on this slide that this isn't just a redevelopment project, it's also a recruitment project. Unlike some of the other projects where we're trying to put something together and then kind of have the, if you build it, they will come mentality. This one we actually have an end use, which is exciting, and we prefer that when we can do that. So we kind of go through the timeline. We talked about this a little bit. The closing of the conveyance of the property would take place no later than 30 days after the developer obtains their building permits from Ogden City. We think that's going to be 120 to 180 days in there because they'll have to do all the design work, getting all the plans and the things that go with it. But within 30 days approval of this LTDA, the developer will go in there and start to stabilize and start to clean things up and take care of those items. And then I won't kind of go through each one of those. We talked about this in the work session, but the core and shell are expected to be complete within a year and a half from the closing. With this, we are asking for participation. The city has been setting aside funding to try to go out and do some stabilization of this building. That money right now amounts to $1 million. And so we are asking for participation not to exceed that amount that would go into then the final product. The concern had been about a year and a half, 2 years ago when I took over this project that we were getting bids, we were getting estimates, try to go through and secure and do some of that work. But it was always just a temporary Band-Aid. It was a temporary patch. And the concern was, do we go and put that money into it and then have it potentially maybe just sit there and kind of do what it's doing again right now? And so we really feel this is a good path forward in the sense that this then gets us a finished product that we don't spend money that then gets tore out and gets done again. It actually can be contributed to a final product. And then it also does include talking about conveying the property to them like we discussed. I think, yep. So with that,
Okay,
there's
so
still lots of questions.
I think there will be. I'll ask Board Member Washington. I kind of cut her off in there, so maybe she can start with where she left off. We do have a nice thing here, and I do expect we'll hear from Mr. Fisher. And so I don't know if we want to hear from him first before we start shooting questions again. That might be a good way to go about that. Sure. Everybody okay with that? All right. Well, let's ask Mr. Fisher to come out and make his pitch for us. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you very much, Chair Heyer and council members. I really appreciate the opportunity. This is an amazing building. This will be our fourth Leslie It's Hodson building that we have purchased and have renovated. So the Monarch is one of the first buildings we did, along with Perry Apartments. It's also the Utah Power and Light Company building, as well as obviously the Exchange building. I can reiterate what Jairus had said about how this has all come together over the last year and how it just fell into place. But I will say that I was at the celebration when the city had it in 2013, and we were very interested and expressed interest at that time to come in for this building. That didn't happen, but we're here 13 years later, and we still have a strong interest in it. There's been a lot of discussion on how this can happen in a way that it will be a win-win for the city, it'll be a win-win for us, and it'll be a win-win for GMRE. There's a lot of logistics involved in this. It was critical that GMRE was part of this equation. To know that we have an end user was critical for us. And I will say, though, this is still a very difficult project, and we have probably at least 4 months of really digging into this to make sure that we know that this is truly going to be a feasible project. But we're very confident. We have a lot of experience. I will say that those pictures are pretty scary, but if I showed you pictures of what we did with the Monarch, it would be on the same basis. So we're very confident in our ability to make this a huge success. So unless there's other questions, you've seen that. I'm more than happy to answer any at this time.
More questions for Mr. Fisher? Anyone?
I'm just curious if you saw the RFP when it went out the first time, and if you decided not to respond to it at that time, or how that kind of timeline went.
No, we had looked at it the first time, and we had actually, the challenge that we had is, I make the comment when people ask me what I do, I say I basically buy bird cages, because when we buy these buildings, they're like this, and I always say we don't do anything we can't walk to. And so we have all our buildings are in the downtown core of Ogden. This has always been just one step out, but it's a Hodson building, which we love. And so the challenge we had at that time is really the rents. What could we actually justify for a fair rent in that location? How much of that building would actually be occupied, and who would occupy it? And it wasn't until we were approached with an end user and we worked with them and their desire to be in this community, as well as this nostalgia of his grandfather actually working with this building, our commitment to historical legacy, and the parts just all fell in place. So, when we've looked at it previously, none of those pieces were all there. Now they are.
I have a question for you. As an experienced person with the Leslie Hodges building, and you've walked through it, obviously. I mean,
Yes.
what do you anticipate finding when you start really digging in? Is that?
It's really the structural and seismic are going to be our two key components, because ultimately, from a feasibility standpoint, those are very, very important. And so we worked with ARW on a lot of our other projects. They've done work on this. We'll discuss this with them as well. And that's going to be probably cleaning it out, seeing what is actually there. There's been a tremendous amount of deterioration that's happened, and it's starting to happen quicker and quicker now, especially. I mean, I was nervous this winter. I really was. And we got a great winter that really had very little impact, but I doubt it would go through the next winter as well as it did this winter.
Sure.
So, working on that standpoint is our first thing. What does this really have the possibility? From an aesthetic standpoint, we've already been out there. We've had subcontractors look at the brickwork. We've even got some initial bids back. So we have some ideas on how to restore, or, I know that a lot of the actual sculptures from the heads have been saved. I think we're pretty good. We have a good track record of making it look like it was. And then we'll have to work, as Jared had mentioned, on the TI side, on the interiors. Outside of the lobby, there's been no discussion of, really changing the lobby up that much from a use standpoint. They are a defense contractor, so they do have some security requirements. But outside of that, I think we're on track. We have a great relationship with SHPO and the Secretary of Interiors, and we're planning on bringing it back to what it used to look like.
Some of us have walked through that, and it seemed like that basement, lots of really wonky cement work down in there. I guess that's going to have to go. And
I say that I know a lot of really good phone numbers to really good engineers and contractors and subcontractors, and we bring the team in and we just start sitting. How are we going to do this? Yeah. And they've looked at it too. GMRE has some thoughts on what uses they can have for that space. That was a critical factor that I didn't factor in previously when we had looked at this. That basement, I didn't know how we would be able to really generate some occupancy there. And they already have some really good ideas.
Okay.
And so, we're, again, working with them. All the parts just seem to fall in place.
yeah, okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Just a question on, I don't know if you can envision down the road, everything goes the way we hope it goes, the building's saved and GMRE moves in. Will there remain any kind of a public access to the building in some fashion? As it's a beloved building in the area, people love it, but like just being able to get in and view the lobby, or you mentioned the security element of the company, and just curious about how that
It's something that would be difficult for me to answer, but our objective would to be yes. We've done that with all our buildings. Obviously, on an exterior standpoint, we can sign, we can tell stories. There's a lot that we can do. But this will be leased by a tenant that I know has, their current building has security requirements in order to be a defense contractor. And so it would be really difficult for me to answer yes, public would have access to this.
Yeah, I figured it would be hard, but I just didn't know if there had been any conversations or discussions.
I have
about
a
that.
feeling that, they're very excited about this building and very proud of the building. There would be definitely an attempt to make that happen. So I just don't want to speak for them.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thane, I'm really excited for you just because you're excited about this building and to accomplish something like this and to pull it off and to make it happen. I think you're the guy. My question is, how long have you been working on this? This is kind of a surprise a little bit for many of us on the city council because for me, the last couple of weeks, it's been the first time we've heard much about it. And usually we have a little lead up time to hear about things. So
We've been talking to GMRE. Well, it's interesting how it came to us. It came to us through a contractor that had looked at it. I don't know, it's probably been about 9 months ago. We basically really had to work everything out with GMRE. This really becomes almost like a partnership with them. We had to get comfortable with each other. So really a big part of our conversation was the two of us before we even started talking to the city. The city said, hey, we know someone that has an interest. This contractor called me. And so I think GMRE and myself, we dated up until about Christmas, is what I would say. And then we had to get all our agreements in place to make sure that we're comfortable with this project. And then we started engaging, okay, we have our ducks in a row. This is when we start engaging with the city.
my second question is, what counsel would you give to us who would be voting on this today as far as moving ahead with this in a timely way that you might want it to move forward?
Well, I think the word timely or timing is critical because we don't want to get in, we want to get as much done on this project before winter hits. That's really the first objective, is really to get this building, stabilize it, hopefully no more vandalism happens, and really get into the nuts and bolts. But we still have to go through the entire, getting construction drawings in place and going through the entire city process, getting building permits in place. So it's going to take time, but our goal is that we can maybe do a demo permit that's independent and get in and start doing a lot of the clean out and getting our engineers in, et cetera. But timing is all about this. We're really grateful and honored that we're here and being considered for this. But besides that, it's the timing. Yeah, it really comes down to how fast we can come in to hopefully save this building.
Thank you, Sheriff. So with just with your comment that you and GMRE have been dating up until October, if GMRE pulls out, what of the project, what happens if the land transfer goes?
Well, the process is that once we have our building permits, we basically would then literally take ownership and we would have a lease in place with them. If they were to pull out, I would have a building over there that I have, I guess, legal ramifications against a tenant, and I would own a building with a mortgage on it.
So it sounds, though, with how you named them as a partner, just with your words, that they're pretty crucial to the steps that you can take
they've expressed an ownership in the building. Okay. And so the one thing that we usually do the buildings to what we call a core and shell. And then we have tenants come in, and that tenant could be a restaurant, it could be an IT company, it could be one of many different uses. So we don't try to anticipate what they're going to do. That's almost like a separate agreement. We can actually do the work for them, but we actually prefer that they do their own work. And when I say they, not GMRE, but our other tenants that have come into the buildings around us. And so we get it to what we call a core and shell, and then we give them an allocation on what that looks like. Working with a defense contractor has security elements. There has a lot of things that, quite frankly, are above my pay grade. So we have worked with them so that they would be responsible for Department of Defense type tenant improvements, and that would be on their side, and that would also determine what type of ownership they would have in the building. And that's really what it comes down to, a partnership.
Thank you. Looking at the parcel of land, there's a significant, and I actually walked around the property this morning. It was a gorgeous day. But just to the west of the building, there's it's dirt, and I haven't been able, and maybe fellow council members can point me towards this in our packet, but I haven't been able to see any additional design elements that would be part of what that build out would be. Would that be just to the east of the building, a parking lot potentially? I know you said that you're working on designs and we haven't had designs submitted with the packet, so we can't review them.
Yeah, we haven't, quite frankly, we have to go through planning. We have to go through the whole, I mean, not planning, but we have to go through the whole construction drawings, working with our civils, et cetera. There will be a substantial amount of parking. There will be space for expansion, and that was another reason why GMRE was basically very excited about this. So they would love to have some sort of possibly a flex space or additional space for when they expand for employees. So
there might be another build.
There could be, but it all depends on how, how they decide, not me. That is not something I would be deciding. It would be something that they decide if they were going to need additional facilities. But it would not be attached to the building. I saw previous plans from another developer where they actually were building on the back of the building. Yeah, I was not a fan of that plan, and so that won't be the plan. This would be a standalone if there's excess land.
Okay, so potentially privatization of the stock exchange building with a potential build on the east side, and then maybe some parking for.
Well, they're going to have to. We have a parking. Yeah, they have right now. They have definitely a parking need.
Yeah. And there's a lot of land. There's a lot of land that would be transferred.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan of that either.
No.
Yeah. Any more questions for Mr. Fisher?
Not for Mr. Fisher.
Okay, let's get Jared back up and.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Thane. I second Board Member Myers. Grateful that you're interested in this and wish you the best of luck. Yes. So
Questions?
I guess anyone else want to jump in before I do? Great. Since we're in this meeting, as opposed to the work session, if we can just be reminded what the parcel of land is appraised at.
Yeah, so we had it appraised in May of 2025. It appraised at that time for $888,000, but they then took a deduction of $90,000 off of that for the demo of the building. So it put the final appraisal at $798,000. I would add, I don't have a specific number to give you, but I would add that $90,000 deduction is going to be low. It's going to cost more than that if you were to demo that entire structure.
So that's just for the structure. That's not the appraisal of the entire parcel.
That
land.
is for the entire
Okay.
piece of property. So the land is where the value came from because they actually deducted for the building because of its state.
Okay, and listed in the transmittal, the land is priced at $0, but we have $1 million incentive for the developer.
Yeah, we're asking for that $1 million that we've been setting aside that was supposed to go towards this building to participate in the final product.
So, but the appraisal is about $798,000 for the land.
Correct.
Okay. What is the, let's see, how much money has Ogden City or the agency spent maintaining the land since 2013?
That is a good question, and I did receive that question. I did not have time to go sit down with finance and go pull that up. I would really have to be focusing on the years from the bulk of that work would have happened from 2015 up and through 2022, 2023. We could get that. I do not have that number off the top of my head.
But it's a significant amount
substantial,
of
yes.
money that, it's
Yeah,
the public has invested in this land.
Yeah, so we did, like when the original RDA area was put together, they went and got a Brownsfield loan because it was identified as a Brownsfield. So for redevelopment, they got a Brownsfield loan from the state. That was $400,000. That has been paid back. There was a HUD 108 loan on it for about $3.3 million. There was a whole lot of sources. I've read thousands of pages of documents on this, and so I wasn't involved in the initial setup, but I tried to make sure I'm pretty up to speed for these questions.
Yeah, and I haven't been able to, I've been clicking through every link of the transmittal and the information provided from you, and I just haven't been able to see firm figures of
Yeah.
what has been spent.
I would have to go sit down with accounting and pull those numbers. I don't have those
Yeah.
off the top. And as I went through all of the documents that I do have access to that were kind of left on the project side of it, there were some Excel spreadsheets in there, but then they were all kind of marked like as draft and none of them were final. So I don't know. And then some of the loan options that it showed in there were not loans that were pursued either. And so I need to go through and identify what actually happened and then our
And the costs, yeah.
And then we've still had an ongoing cost. Like I said, that building, unfortunately, I wish I was exaggerating, but it literally almost gets broken into like almost every night. And we have spent a lot of money just on the code services side, just abating it. We have a third-party contractor that goes in, repairs the fence, boards the windows back up. It's been
So a lot of costs from the
Nonstop.
community members across to maintain
Yeah.
that we've invested
Yeah.
as the community in that property.
Yep. And
Okay.
still are for a property that you could say is a liability at
Yeah,
this point.
and potentially it will be privatized that we get to view from the street. Okay. So then when it comes to, do we have any idea of the environmental remediation phases cost? Thank you for that information, by the way. I did thumb through those phases to see that we've completed 3 phases, but any idea of how much that remediation cost
No,
was?
kind of the same thing. I would need to go sit down and go and start pulling up all the receipts from the past from AMEC, that was the contractor that was doing all that work, to identify those. I don't know the figure off the top of my head. I apologize.
No, that's okay. And so I hear you say the cost of ongoing maintenance for the property since the ownership, like repairing fences or any type of 4x8 that gets put up because it gets broken into. And so that's, again, just costs that all of us, the whole entire community has incurred and invested in this property. I'm curious, you did mention during the work session that there was potentially some business engagement surveys with surrounding businesses. Were those formal? Do you have minutes on those?
No.
Again, those weren't included in our packet.
Yeah, they were informal, so we didn't do like a specific, like a survey. I talked to the owner of Ogden's Own next door, so they do a lot of events down there at their building. They've had issues with the bats and some of the different things that are happening there. So I talked to them. At one point in time, they expressed interest in it, and they're like, holy cow, like, what kind of numbers are you seeing right now? What if we just bought it and did something with it? Because, and I told them the numbers, they were like, not a chance. We didn't spend that much building our entire building that we have now.
Yeah.
I've talked with Enable as well. They're directly to the north, and just some of the same frustrations. Didn't talk much, as much like about the bats, but they were like, man, the appearance of this thing, like it was always supposed to kind of be the crown jewel as you came into that business park, and why aren't you doing something with it? And so we've been working feverishly trying to figure out what that something is. And I'll never sit here and try to tell you that this is the absolute most perfect option, because there's always things out there that maybe we could sit there and consider and try to do. But I can tell you, at least in my last 2 years of being highly involved in this project, this is the closest we have ever gotten at actually having a resolution that is a go.
And I, just to talk about that process again, I know there was an RFP in 2024, and Councilmember Lindell asked the question to Mr. Fisher, just why we didn't receive more information sooner. Even council last year to council this year, that there were serious discussions happening in the development of this property, potential development of this property.
Over time, we have had some preliminary discussions, just very high level, trying to say, hey, here's where we're at. This is kind of what's happening. And yes, to your point, we have not had any of those meetings since the first of the year to kind of just identify any of the current paths that we're on right now, or what's taking place. You asked me earlier about the ENA. That's on me. Like, that's my fault. It wasn't meant to be. I don't know, not meant to leave it out, right? It was just, we got excited because I think all of a sudden an opportunity came. The other side of not having one is technically, unless you approve this LTDA, they don't have any formal commitment from us either, which means we could still be receiving any other opportunities that are coming forth.
Okay, thank you for that. I was looking over, is it the RFP that that fell through
Q factor?
Q
Factor, yeah.
Yeah, I was scanning through that document and what they provided, and they did provide some design elements, right? And it led me into the further process of looking through the application of their application, and then the potential current developer, their application. And let me just make sure I have this right in my notes. There's an RFP, at least listed, there's an RFP evaluation. And it says amongst like a committee or stakeholders. Did that happen with this process?
On the Q factor? Or
On this one.
It did in 2024 when we issued an RFP, right? We received one proposal. There was a committee that went through and evaluated it. That proposal, the proposal was dismissed because the request in there we provided $5 million to go with it. And so it wasn't feasible. We do have an RDA in that area. There is no increment that available. It is tapped.
Yeah.
The entire allotment is already dedicated to previous things. And so that proposal was dismissed and was not awarded. And then, like we talked about in the work session, that's when other conversations started kind of happening.
But with this current developer, they have not gone through the same process of going through an evaluation and being
not in this round
scored. No. So just so it's out there, I pulled the RFP evaluation, proposed deal structure. This is what's supposed to be included, which it has been. So let me save us a little bit. But there's points possible. List respondents' anticipated equity contribution, if applicable. Let's see. If respondent intends to request for other local, state, or federal funds, including tax credits, if applicable, identify if there's any remaining gap in financing needing to make the project feasible. Proposals will be evaluated in accordance with the criteria listed below. Again, this is listed in the RFP from 2024. Qualifications and experience, proposed approach and design, concept, project financials, and then a possible points from 40, a total of 100 points may be possible. And so we don't have that RFP process with the current developer.
No, because
and it didn't go through stakeholders to go through that point evaluation process.
Not on this. This would be more of a like a sole negotiation, right? Like we've identified potential use. We still had them fill out the application as far as if they were applying for TIF, even though there's no TIF available. We're not offering any TIF, and it covers a lot of those requirements as far as the uses and what's their participation, identifying what the gap is, because we still went through and identified. So when I talk about that, we are asking for participation in that. That participation is coming from the pro forma that was provided to us that still shows that, look, this is what we can do, and this is what the rent will afford, and this is what we could make happen. And we're still short. So it still is somewhat utilizing the but-for argument of the RDA, but we're not talking about including TIF, but we're still following those same type of lines to vet it out and go through it.
Okay, thank you. When looking over the packet, and council staff did help clarify this for me, and I spoke with council member Lendell about it. The project financing that was outlined in the developer's application was an RDA land and building amount requested of 1.1 million, a little above that, and then RDA funding gap. 1.2 million, a little bit higher than that. But in the agreement, it secures that only 1 million.
Up to 1 million.
Up to 1 million as an
Not to
incentive.
exceed.
Okay, thank you. And then potentially my final two questions is just another conversation surrounding if and when the developer, the land transfer happens, should we as a city, maybe this is to Gary, to CAO Brown, have in there something about demolition by neglect? Because we've heard from the potential developer that there still needs to be more studies done to get in there to do a little bit more clean out, that if it is, and I want to preserve this building, let me lead with that. It's part of our history, but if it's at a point where we cannot salvage it in any means possible and it needs to be demolished, would we have an opportunity as a city to have that land transferred back to us? Or could the potential developer come back to the city and file demolition by neglect with the city?
So before anybody jumps in on that one, real quick, I do want to touch on that. We did talk about it a little bit. So what our hope and our goal is, like we talked about in the work session, is because we're talking about if the board approves this, having that 180-day window, right, before we would actually convey it. That's the work that we're going to be doing in between that time frame to identify if there are any items in there that make this technically infeasible. I cannot stand before you and sit there and say it'll be 100%, but it's going to be pretty dang close. Like, we're really going to kind of know at that point because we will have gotten. So when Thane talked about demo, I want to be careful. It does not mean demo the building. That means getting his demo permit, going in there, cleaning it up, starting to do some destructive measures in certain areas to start to identify those potential options, right? And so, and then we've got ARW as a structural engineering firm who is amazing, actually, on retrofitting of existing buildings. And so I'm really glad that they're an Ogden company. But we'll have them right there with us, kind of going through it and identifying those items. And our goal is that before we actually conveyed it to him, we would know the answer to that. If there is something that is going to make it not possible, we would know that before we actually convey the building. And we will be right back in here talking to you saying, here's what we found.
Is there any consideration that with that $1 million that's set aside that we should do that prior to having a developer in conversation with a developer so we know the extent?
So that is the work. That's the money that we're utilizing for this pre-work.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me sift through that. Has there ever been a discussion about dividing up that parcel of land so that the city could maintain ownership and rehabilitate that building because it's on a separate part of land, and then the other parcel where there might be a potential build, we could, just as a city, have that split in half so we could maintain rehabilitate the building, have it for public use in some capacity, but then on the other parcel of land that's just east of it, if we were to divide it, that could be developed.
I have not had that conversation about potentially retaining a portion of it.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's a good segue maybe for public comment, if possible.
If other people don't have questions, that's
Thank
what we'll
you.
do. But any other questions from board members? Okay. Thank you. All right, we have elected to receive public input on this item at this time. If any of the public wishes to address this land transfer and development agreement, now would be a good time. Give us your name, your city, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Teresa Bramwell. I live in Salt Lake City, but I am a landowner and a taxpayer in the city of Ogden. So this matters to me, and this is why I came here today. So when Mr. Fisher got up and spoke, he named there were 3 winners: the city, the developer, and the tenant, the company that will be occupying the building. I would like there to be a 4th winner, and I would like that to be the taxpayers. And I have 3 terms that I want you to think about in approaching this. Real estate terms. One of them is a special warranty deed. The LDS Church uses these all the time. to transfer their properties. And it's different from a general warranty deed in that the seller is dictating exactly how that property will be used once the transfer is made. So that special warranty deed can have a time frame limit on it. Say this is going to happen within 5 years, or the seller has the ability to come back and repurchase the property for the exact same amount of money that the buyer purchased it for, which in this case would be $0 minus $1 million. The second term is a land lease. That is the circumstance where the seller maintains ownership of the land, but the buyer or the tenant would maintain the ability to use the land for a specified amount of time, say 50 years, 99 years. Many other states use these land leases, Colorado, Hawaii. Almost any property in Hawaii is on a 99-year land lease, where the government, in this case would be the city or the taxpayers or your children, would maintain the ownership of that land. And hopefully the building that we're trying to preserve in doing all of this. This is all to preserve this specific building, because the land, this is an industrial area. You know, people aren't going to want to go out there and spend time in an industrial area necessarily. What is preservable about this is the building because it has historic significance. So the third term is a lot line adjustment, and Councilmember Washington asked about this, and that would be where prior to transferring the property, the lot were divided in two by the seller, maintaining the vacant part of the land for future development or sale. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Hello, Emily Fox, Ogden resident. It's interesting to put a face with a name I see on the screen every week. I just wanted to say that I saw the Ogdenite post about this on the agenda this week, and I actually skimmed through the proposal, and I thought it was interesting, the timeline and the lack of follow through and preserving this, and now that there's this opportunity to save a building and put people in it, and bring more people to the downtown-ish Ogden area, I think overall is a net positive. I do hope that in the development they can have maybe in the lobby area some public tours at certain times, because I do love these buildings here in Ogden and the historic value that they have. But I appreciate that Ogden is looking to save things versus just tear them down and start something fresh. I think that's something Salt Lake has messed up on, in my opinion. And so I think this is a good thing overall, and I like that it's happening. So, thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Anyone else? Boy, there's a face from the past. Good to see you, Tammy.
Bring that mic down. Tammy Krieger, 159 West 2nd Street and 145 West 2nd Street, Ogden. And Alicia, thank you. Great ideas. I have lots of concerns as a representative of Weber County Heritage Foundation. And many of you have been with me the long haul and trying to preserve that little piece of Ogden, North Ogden, and now we're talking West Ogden, where more of the people of color or less means come from. So I think it's good that we're looking at this. This stockyard building is really, truly the last piece of important Ogden history. And I think it's critical what you were saying about, and Alicia, retaining some of the ownership or having some control over that. Excuse me. I am so glad that you are on board and you want to preserve it. But I'll be honest, the last few years especially, I, as a citizen of United States of America who was raised very patriotic, I don't have a lot of faith anymore. Sometimes. And I want to trust that you have great intentions to do what you're saying, and that the developer, who may or may not continue to have these big defense contracts, some of us are hoping that they don't, that we cover our assets. This building is an asset. Alicia, you are spot on with saying that we need to, a simple lot line agreement. You just need to have a developer or a surveyor come out, and it can be done in a matter of 6-8 weeks, where we could retain, the community could retain ownership of part of this process. We don't need to give away our assets for nothing. Really. Even though it's only valued at $700 and whatever, personally, I know my 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 167-year-old house that I've been content in for the last 30 years just came valued at $350,000. I'm going, there's a lot of land. How much land? How much land are we talking about?
1.81.
I don't believe that it doesn't have more value than that. And I don't believe that it has $0 value, because we all need to watch our pennies. So think about that as you move forward in your decision making, and I'd encourage you to partner for sure, because I hope you're an answer to our prayers, but I think there's more to be considered.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks.
Good to see you again.
You too, Rich.
I hadn't intended to say anything on this. My name's Jim Alvey.
City?
Well, Ogden is on my address,
All right, thank you,
but
Jim.
I'm in the county. Two things just that I would say on this. When I heard somebody say something like, retain it, have the city develop it, I wanted to scream, no. You guys aren't developers. Please don't put on your developer hats. Thane's a developer. I think I can relate to him. If you look a half block away at the Browning Brothers building, that looks like that because of my wife and I. If you look at the Copper Nickel, that's because of my wife and I. And I can tell you the Copper Nickel would, if we waited for more money or for more stuff, that building wouldn't be here. It would have been torn down. Mm-hmm. It was proposed to be torn down. When Thane mentions, will it last another winter? I know what that's like. The building next to the Copper Nickel was not maintained. The freezing and thawing made the building collapse, pulling down part of our wall. I guess all I'm saying is I used to ice skate at that building. And it is...
You're dating yourself.
I am. I'll bet very few of you used to ice skate there, but I did. And they've got a plan. When they say 60 jobs, you had me at 60 jobs. Short of that, somebody else trying to whip something together is going to lose that building. And so I just leave that with you. I've been around the block on these old buildings. Sometime holler at me and I'll give you a nickel tour of the Browning building, and you'll be inspired by what took place in that building. And I'll tell you some ghost stories. Sounds like you're interested in them.
Thanks, Mr. Alvey.
Linda Sanchez. My request is that before they have to, before opening date, maybe they let the public come in, as it has been in the public. A lot of us have been ice skating there, so that we can just have a glimpse. And I know later on that will not be an opportunity, but maybe they could have an opening so that the public could see. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
Laura Lewis, Ogden City resident. I look at this as when are we going to have another opportunity? Can this building last another year? If you delay this opportunity or push it out too far, ask too many questions, put too many restrictions on it, it might disappear. I say opportunities to save a building like this in this condition aren't beating down your door. Go for it.
Thanks, Laura.
Hi, Travis Pate, Ogden resident, and oddly enough, a resident of a Leslie Hodson building. So we just put a new roof on the building, and it cost us $10,000 more than the house cost us just to put a new roof on it. So if someone's willing to come in and invest and spend well more than what the building was put in for, such as like the American Can building built for $1 a square foot in 1919, could we come up with $250,000 to put into that again? So I appreciate and applaud Mr. Fisher's attempts at coming in and helping. I think that I've seen a couple quirks with projects that have his in the past. So to me, obviously, I would say before there's an occupancy permit that all the checks are balanced out, all the things that are needed to be done in order to have proper occupancy and proper tenancy there, that we just have that aspect. Somebody says, oh, we don't have time to reinforce all these other aspects down the line. Well, we don't need to. It's a simple thing. Occupancy permit doesn't get issued unless all the things are balanced. And then also possibly the deed of reconveyance, that it just, if it's a certain amount of time before anything happens, then by default, it just comes back to us. And that's fairly simple real estate things. As far as the city waiting, I have a couple examples. There's the water tower alignment, and it says the skyline before the Ogden Mall. There's the Ogden Mall being torn down and the junction being rebuilt in its shadow. Another RDA project, which is another Leslie Hodson building, which is the Forest Service. That was 25 sites were considered before that site was considered. And so I'll just leave these two items with you. I decided to try to feed this into AI to see what it would look like as an impressionistic painting. And it didn't come back with a map. It came back with an impressionistic painting with blots of the federal building all over, the Forest Service building. So I applaud the efforts of a developing team that's going to come in, and them also having a tenant. That's great. And I think that that's just one of the things. And yes, with our Weber County Heritage Foundation friend, yes, it'd be awesome if weapons and swords could be beat into plowshares. We all pray for world peace. And so I appreciate the efforts and the questions of this council or this board, and thank you for the time. But please let's see what we can do for another Leslie Hodson accolade, such as the one we're in now. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Okay, we do have some hands online. I don't see anybody else here in the chambers, but okay. Well, let's get you up first then.
Hello, my name's Hannah Wagner. To be honest, I was listening online and got a little happy online, so I decided to come down. So I apologize in advance if I'm a little scattered. I was just listening to the planning committee regarding the parking. And I will be completely honest that I got a little emotional as a taxpayer of the city. I've lived here for the past 6 years, but I have a very long family history here. Very, very long. My grandfather was an assistant police chief, and my grandma retired from the Union Station. So I love this city. I understand that we are growing, but my thoughts on parking, and as simple as it seems with parking, paying for parking, I am a taxpayer, and
Hannah, are you here to talk about parking or this building?
I'm here at the Ogden City Council to talk about.
Well, the reason I ask is because public comment will come in a little bit. But
I apologize.
Yeah,
I thought this was public.
Nope, not yet. So
I came down, and so I can hold my comments till later.
Yeah, just hang on.
Okay,
You'll be
that's
okay.
fine.
We'll get you back up in a minute.
Yep. Sure thing.
Okay. We have online. Looks like Glenna B.
Hello, this is Glenna. Sorry for the back echo. we entrust you with financial means as taxpayers. You guys didn't even bring a representative who had financial literacy about the building. Get it together. What are you, and you guys are talking about golfing? Come on, because what I know from Colton Johansson, John Polson, Officer Miller, Carson Garcia, Austin Eborn, Detective Folkman. Oh, and just so you know, I know who Brandon Davis is, and you pay tax dollars for him to go into my phone. And this is, don't mistake this, because I have my own private investigation. Just know this, you guys, you are debating over $1 million of a glass house. Yes, it's historic. But realize this glass house is made of black and white checkers with a monarch butterfly in front of it. This, not just that, no, I'm on a roll. Gabby Petito's, one of her last moments of life, in front of that monarch butterfly. Are you kidding me? Who do you guys think you are? Because me, myself, whatever the taxpayers are going through, I was molested, groped, pinched my nipple, and talked about my breast augmentation by Officer Eborn, Austin Eborn. And he got the okay from his lieutenant, Booth, Glenn Booth, who covered for him the whole way and laughed in front of my complaint. You guys have no room for anything. Everybody that has said anything about today, thank you, brothers and sisters. For Travis Bates, really? You guys, amazing, very valid points. While you sit there and for nothing, you guys just sit there. And at my last talk, okay, Mr. Nagowski, you addressed my complaint as a federal problem. Well, where am I supposed to go? Because I went to every avenue in the Weber district while I was molested. I called you 5 times with no response, and that's on you. And so if it comes to a federal level, guess who called that on? Yourself, sir. You did. So take this. Take this as you guys need to learn some financial literacy, some humanitarianism, and get it together, because our tax dollars are not your golf party. They're not sure this, that. Really? Human beings that live here, not for your financial gain, not for your attaboy this, that.
Thank you for your
May God
comments.
have mercy on your soul.
I am not sure what that had to do with this building. Okay. Next person is Heath Sato. Angel is next. Okay, Angel.
Good evening, Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. Thank you for putting this meeting online so I can still work on a project that I'm doing and participate in what I think is really important. Those of you that know me, pretty much since 2019, starting mid-2018, I stood before the RDA and the council, really expressing my thoughts and the fact that we should not be giving away land. So what I'm about to say is probably going to make your head explode. For this particular deal, I believe this should happen, because what's in front of you, there are 2 things. A historic building that can't be rebuilt, replaced, is collapsing, and it's a piece of our history. And all of the questions that Councilmember Washington brought up, which I deeply, deeply appreciate, are addressing our city's challenges with the process that I do believe need to be addressed. But for this particular piece, I don't think that halting the process is going to be helpful, because at the cost of losing the exchange. That building isn't going to make it through another winter. And this particular deal, again, I always am highly, highly suspect of giving away land, giving away incentives, because I believe the free market can take care of most of that. But for this particular case, if we want to keep that building, we're going to have to move forward because the building got this way because deal after deal fell through with the previous administration. If you know anything about earthquake retrofitting, the building right next door to you, which we used to use as a jail, the reason it's not occupied is because it's unsafe, because it needs to be retrofitted for earthquake laws that we have. And that is ungodly expensive, which is why it's sitting empty right now. The costs involved with just making the Exchange building safe, let alone restoring it to its historic significance, has to be coupled with some incentives for the developer to be able to make it pencil out. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but this is one of the best examples I've ever seen come before you of you should be doing this. So I highly support this project. Dane Fisher does beautiful work with historic buildings, and keep addressing the process because I believe it needs to be fixed. And I think we should all be looking at community land trusts and having the public-private partnership. Thank you.
Thanks, Angel. And now we have Heath Sato.
And now we have Heath. Hi, Heath Sato, Ogden resident. There are a lot of good things brought up and worth considering regarding the process and options. But I really appreciate that we tried to do an RFP process on this building, even though it failed. At least we tried and gave it a shot. And but I know this developer is taking a lot of risk on this project, so I don't know how much it'd take to skew the whole deal. And this is an amazing night because Laura and I completely agree on this issue. And it's now or never on this project, and we need to save it. As far as asking about the benefit to the taxpayer, there's going to be increased property taxes, or we'll start generating property taxes. We've not been getting any from that property for the entire time the city's owned it. We have an employer moving here. We have more people doing business in Ogden that will be coming there to work there. All of those things benefit the taxpayer. And frankly, as a taxpayer that lives in Ogden and drives down 24th and eats occasionally at Rooster Speedy Street, once these buildings are gone, they never come back. And I don't want to see that building gone. It is right on the edge of gone. I've talked to city employees about it who really thought it's a goner, that we're never going to save it. And I was incredibly excited when I heard that we had landed on a deal. And you can go back and see that I supported basically the same deal when it was Q Factor. And I support it even more now that it's a much more local developer who's done a lot of projects here. Someone, we can trust as a developer. The only thing I'd say, I haven't read the contract, but make a better contract than you did for the Brown Ice Cream Building. I trust Thane, and I don't trust many developers, but make it so if they transfer ownership, the next owner has to stick to whatever agreement he made with the city. We really blew it on the Brown Ice Cream Building, and we see what happened. So that's it. Thanks.
And we have Amy Wicks next.
Hi, thank you. Amy Wicks, Ogden resident. I'm going to remind you of some history. I was on the city council when Ogden considered a demolition by neglect ordinance. And at the time, we had a lot of historic buildings that were being purchased by developers, including the proposed developer. And when those development plans did not progress, buildings were allowed to deteriorate. And so Ogden adopted a demolition by neglect ordinance. we should have used it on ourselves years ago with this building. I was also on the city council when the city purchased this building with every hope that historic renovation would occur. And there were grandiose plans. But as you know, Ogden City does not always have the best track record when it comes to selecting development partners. So I would just encourage you to put in some safety rails to make sure that what needs to happen with the building happens. It should never have been allowed to get to the state that it's in. And, you know, I'm hopeful that something is going to happen with it. And that there is a developer on board, but, you know, this is a publicly owned building. These are our tax dollars that were utilized to purchase the building, to take care of it as we've been taking care of it since we purchased it over a dozen years ago. And I just would really encourage you to, you know, figure out a way to make sure it happens. And if it doesn't, make sure that the taxpayers of Ogden are protected and the building's protected, so we don't lose another one of our historic treasures in Ogden City. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Another hand online is Kathy Darby.
This is Kathy Darby. I'm an Ogden resident. I've lived in and around Ogden for 73 years. And I totally agree with Laura tonight, Heath, Angel, and Amy that we need to go forward with this. We need to take care of our old stuff because we don't have much of it left. I'm on the Union Station group, and we are working on that too. And I think that this administration is working really hard to save some of our jewels. And I would really like to see this deal go through. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, I think that's all the hands online. I think we got everybody that wanted to talk about this item from the chambers. So we'll go ahead and come back to the board at this time. I think maybe some of these things need to be addressed. And maybe I'll go last. So anybody else want to go first to address some of this?
Sure. I think I would just say, I mean, just kind of where I'm coming at this. 4 years ago when I was first on the council, you know, the situation with that building was desperate. Obviously, it was in tough shape. And if we're not prepared to say yes to this, I think we just need to be prepared to say goodbye to the building at this stage of the game. I appreciate Thane and his efforts. He's done excellent work in Ogden. His enthusiasm and commitment to Ogden is evident based on the work that he's been doing, and I'm excited about the partnership. For this building to be saved, it's going to take a bunch of partners coming together and working together to make it work. And having a business that wants to come in and bring jobs to the area, I think that's an added benefit, of course. Having a talented and experienced developer to work through the issues is good. The timeline, I appreciate Jared sharing the timeline and how that land would convey and the steps that would be necessary for that to happen. I feel like we've protected ourselves well in that regard. And, you know, as far as the value and, you know, I think that land is probably more valuable without the building, quite frankly, in this environment. And so if we truly want to preserve our history, this looks to me like our last opportunity. And without this, I don't think it happens. So I'd be prepared to move forward with it, but I'm curious to hear anybody else's thoughts.
Anyone else?
Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I like this project too. I understand some of the concerns that were expressed tonight. Ms. Krieger, I think you were the one that mentioned we're giving away an asset. Instead, I think that if you turn the coin over, we're also preserving an asset that is historic in our city, and that's kind of how I look at it. Thank you, Heath, for pointing out that this is a piece of property that's generating no tax revenue. But as a renovated building that holds an employer with good paying jobs, it will. And in addition, as a benefit to the taxpayer, we won't be nickel and diming, and it's bigger than nickel and diming, money into the building to try to keep it in one piece over the coming years, waiting for perhaps another opportunity to come along. Maybe one doesn't come along. I think it's a grand opportunity. We've got timelines put in place for performance, and we've got Fisher Reagan as an organization that has a proven track record in the community to do good work on historic and difficult projects. And I, too, am ready to kind of move forward with this.
Okay. Anybody else? My recollection of the history of this building, I'm old and I've been around here a long time, and I did skate at the Coliseum. And I have heard, and I don't have verification of this, but before the city ever got involved in this, I heard that some man bought this building for almost for a nominal price and gave it to his wife for Christmas. And with the thought that he would renovate it, thinking that it just needed a coat of paint and a new roof or something. But he soon realized that was not going to take care of it. He was way in over his head. And I think sometime after that, the city got involved, of course. Then I remember Q Factor proposal, and I had some anxiety about what they wanted to do to the building, and I had issues with that. I got over it, and because I think that the building did need to be saved, and this was the only one that was at the table to do it. That's a really cool building. I drove by it a few months ago, looked at it, and I thought, well, the Q Factor thing, that was the last opportunity for this thing to have life. I thoroughly expected people to say it wasn't able to be saved. I was overjoyed when we finally got somebody that said, yep, we're interested and can do it and have a tenant, and I don't know what else we could ask. It's a pretty nice arrangement. Yeah, we didn't go through an RFP for this, but I think that's in the past. I don't think we could do all that at this point. I'm overjoyed that Thane wants to do it. The money that we have set aside for keeping it up to, keeping it kind of together, I'm overjoyed. I mean, I'm happy that that's going to be able to take care of this, and I think that the taxpayers will be rewarded because we won't have to keep on pouring money into a building that is just deteriorating more and more and more every year, and in the end end up with just a pile of bricks. So this is the best of all situations for me, and I also am willing to go forward. The details that I think we're past the point where we talk about lot lines and things of that nature. I think this has already been negotiated and agreed on to the point where it is where it is, and I think it's a pretty good deal for the city and for the taxpayers. I think they will benefit from this. I think that is that fourth entity that will benefit. So anyway, if nobody else has anything else to say, yes.
I thank you for everyone's comments and for everyone's love of this building. I just want to, there's one section in the land transfer and development agreement. Again, I'm just deeply, deeply, deeply concerned that the agency, we could come back and have something in front of us because of demolition by neglect. Let me get to my correct tab, excuse me. It's section 2, settlement and closing, subsection 3, unforeseen and unanticipated condition. If you're in the PDF, it's page 18. Prior to settlement, if the developer discovers an unexpected or unanticipated environmental condition on the agency property and the agency on the agency property, the agency shall remediate the condition if possible. If an environmental condition cannot be remediated, or if structural condition in the building renders the project economically infeasible, developer shall have the right and option in the developer's sole discretion to terminate this LTDA. So if the developer decides to not terminate that, but come at the city with the demolition, I've said it too many times, demolition by neglect in the code 17-5-3, we're going to lose the building anyway. And I know it just feels like a huge risk to me. It feels like a huge risk when we've had constituents present us with a few other options of the lot line adjustment, land and lease, that we can go back to the drawing board. And we've also heard multiple times that we're in a season that we can spend the next couple months potentially looking at these other options before moving forward with this lease agreement, because as we all know, land is finite. And once the transfer happens, if it happens, that building is no longer part actually like in the city's hands.
Any other comments?
Can anyone speak to that concern? Gary, I know you were invoked, or administration, kind of about that that concern there. Jared?
Yeah, I don't really at this time know exactly what more to add on that. Like I mentioned before, so as we go through any of those items, the intent and the reason that is written the way it is to identify and discover any of those items that might make the project infeasible prior to us conveying it to.
But demolition by neglect is not off the table when it comes to this lease, this land transfer.
If we transfer it to him, well, I don't want to do this because I don't necessarily want to get up here and kick it to Gary or to the city attorney. Sorry, but if the conveyance goes through and it's in his hands and he doesn't do anything or doesn't go through, we have legal ramifications that we can go through. I am not the attorney in the room, so I don't foresee a path for him to come back after the city for demolition by neglect when he accepted it in the condition that it is in, knowingly. I would have to defer to the attorney. I'm not that person.
Demolition by neglect is just a city ordinance that says that we can go after third parties. It's not a claim against the city. It's a claim against individual owners out in the community. But the concept of being demolished by neglectful action is what's happening right now. It's falling down literally, and so I think the concept of it falling down, if you call that demolition by neglect, then that's already happening. If you're worried about a lawsuit against the city for a demolition by neglect, that's not a risk.
Yeah, it sounded like, when you read that chapter verse, it sounded like the worst that would happen is we'd lose the 6 months' time.
Yeah.
We'd end up in the same situation we are now, and then be looking for another developer if we could find one. And we have had a really hard time finding one. So I think we probably ought not tick this one off and make him go away and find ourselves in a position where we need to find another developer. I think we've got a great collaboration, a great offering, and I think we ought to thank our lucky stars we have this opportunity right now. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Chair, I think if we, at this point, I've had a lot of discussion on this. I think if we put forth I would propose that we adopt the proposed resolution 2025-6-1 and move forward with this.
I'll second.
Okay, got a motion by Board Member Ritchie, seconded by Vice Chair Graff to Adopt Resolution 2026-1. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Lopez,
Yes.
Board Member Lundell,
Yes.
Board Member Myers,
Aye.
Board Member Ritchie,
Aye.
Board Member Washington,
Nay.
Vice Chair Graff,
Aye.
Chair Heyer.
Aye. That passes. We have one no vote. We will give you the opportunity to explain it if you'd like.
Oh, I think it's all recorded, my concerns. Thank you.
Okay, all right, sounds good.
Chair Heyer?
Yes?
Would you permit me a moment to
Sure.
make a comment?
You bet.
I want to thank Jared for the effort you put into this project. What wasn't discussed tonight is some of the real world implications of what we've been dealing with in our administration. As many of you know, and wasn't really recognized tonight, we inherited an insane amount of unfinished work in this administration. And we have had to pick up the pieces of a lot of different agreements and rewrite a lot of different agreements. We've been able to claw back the money that was committed for this project and set aside and hold it and keep it dedicated to this project. Jared has gone through every appropriate process. We're not required in all instances to do an RFP, but it's the practice of this administration that we do, and we did. That RFP didn't lead directly to this specific deal, but it led to offers that didn't pencil, didn't work. I mean, there were times that Jared was coming to my office, you guys, and telling me, Mayor, I might need like $9 million of general fund money to make this happen, or of an RDA fund. We don't have that kind of money laying around. It was just so impossible to make this thing work without the right partner. And so you might recall that there was some press pressure and some press attention on this building in the past. In every single instance, we said, we are talking to different developers and builders and experts on this building because we were. And so the fact that it surprised you guys is because we finally got there. And so I'm really thankful that you are willing to take this on. This required this level of expertise and specialization that we just didn't have at the table at the time. But there were so many people in the background that loved this building so much in the industry and with expertise that they were talking amongst each other and saying, there's got to be a way, there's got to be somebody that could figure it out. And, the defense contractor had so much interest in the project and the building because it's just a deep love for the history. And at the same time, Jared was finishing so many different projects. Through this tenure, we had to replace an airport manager. We had to replace and didn't have a building services, code enforcement, and business licensing manager. We didn't have a manager for the RDA. We have been in every one of those instances, and we had to go through and get an assistant executive director. In every one of those instances, Jared covered every one of those jobs while also pursuing and proceeding through all of these processes. I just want to say, Jared, thank you, because I asked you specifically, and this was a huge priority for me because of seeing the history and what we were losing day by day. It was concerning me. And in our State of the City, I said, in the coming year, you guys can expect City of Ogden that we're going to put prioritization toward historic preservation. This is one of those projects I had in mind. This was a top priority. And Jared, I can't thank you enough for how hard you worked to make this happen and for the support from the staff and having Eric on board to help carry it forward. This took so much work to figure out, and it just wouldn't have been possible without the kind of commitment and dedication we have from you guys. So thank you to the team for getting this to tonight. Thank you to the council for supporting this. Thank you to the developer for stepping in and taking the risk. It's an enormous risk. From this point forward, it's not done. It's going to be hard. So if we're back, it won't be for lack of trying. It won't be for thinking through it and doing everything we can. But this is going to be a process. And when it's all said and done, we're going to be really proud of the outcome. And we are no longer going to be guilty of demolition by process. We're going to finally move through and see what we can do to get this figured out. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for the council support to get this done. This is a hugely important step.
Thank you, Mayor. There was one suggestion in the public comment that maybe we can make a kind request, and if there could be an open house on this when it's nearing completion, that'd be really sweet if we could pull that off. We can't require it of you, but
make that kind request, so thank you. All right, now we have public comment. This is an opportunity to address the board regarding your concerns or ideas on any topic. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Give us your name and city, and go ahead and come on up. And
Laura Lewis, Ogden City resident. I want to address the paid parking management. I think that project has morphed. I looked at the fees. They're nowhere, they don't resemble anything that was in the initial proposal. I think there's been a lot of discussion outside, basically not making the public aware of how this project's morphed. And I think there needs to be a step back and let us know how all this is developed, because these numbers are so far off from the original fees that were part of this project to make it successful. I want to understand how you're going to meet the financial commitments that were made with these lower fees. And also, I don't think those fees look very equitable. From my point of view, are we subsidizing? I saw a fee on there for residents. Are we subsidizing the tenants in the Wonder Block now? Because originally there was, in that project, there was no consideration for employees, which I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just want to understand. But there was no consideration for employees or residents or anybody else. And now there's a huge savings for them. So I'd like to understand how this project financially has gotten to where it is. Thank you.
thanks, Laura.
Hello, Emily Fox, Ogden resident. I just wanted to come up and just say thank you to you guys who allowing us to have public comment and to address you and to bring our concerns. I know sometimes when we're up here, it can be really intense, and I just wanted to say that I recognize that the position you guys are in is not always an easy one, and that you have handled public feedback with grace. And I know I personally have felt heard, and even last week I really felt some of the stuff that I brought up has actually been addressed, and at least there's forward momentum. And so I just wanted to thank you all again for all that you do and for taking on this position to work in this city and to make our community the best that it can be. So thank you.
Thanks, Emily. We don't often get thank yous.
I know you're done talking about the exchange building, but the reason there's bats.
You got to give us your name, Jim.
Oh, Jim, it's Jim Alvey, Ogden. The reason there's bats is in 2009, they started Ogden's Own and they said they needed vats. And there was a little confusion. So I want to just real quickly address the Utah Renewables communities. When I first read that, my response was, ooh. And strangely enough, ooh is spelled O-O, and O-O means opt out. When my son was 16, he wanted a Subaru WRX in the worst way. And he'd saved a little money. We went to look for this car, and he found one he fell in love with. It was everything that a WRX should be, right color. We test drove it. It was fast, and he wanted it. And the car dealer came out and said, here's how much it is, and this is how much it would be a month. And my son just collapsed. He knew he couldn't afford it. And the car dealer said, let me go back and see what I can do. And he came out and he said, I can get it to you for this much a month. And my son just brightened up because he could afford that much a month. The thing the guy didn't tell him is it was salvage title. It was back-end financing for years, and the interest rate had changed a great deal. And this renewables is not going to bring the blue sky, which, by the way, we already have. It's got so many red flags. A program that you have to opt out of is fraught with problems. You've opted in, or if you choose to opt in for everyone, they have to choose to opt out. I mean, the very nature of that deal is wrong. People who have solid ideas and solid money put their own money into it. And I'm talking about Berkshire Hathaway Energy. They would be funding this more themselves. When they've got flimsy things, they look for your money to fund it. This is not ready. You guys have shown some good common sense tonight, but this deal is not a good deal. This is my son's car deal. It's back-end financed. It's the wrong people. People should be voting no. I hope you'll make Ogden City an opter out. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Alvey.
Good evening. I'm Josh Creek, Ogden resident. I'm doing a lot better tonight and not about to collapse in front of you all. Councilman Ritchie, Councilmember Ritchie, I emailed you back today. Tonight, I'd like to just follow up on some comments the mayor made last week. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned your willingness to make a request to the ice hold room at 2487 South, 1620 West, for a fire inspection, and you believed that that would be granted. Tonight, I would just like to ask that you request that fire inspection if you haven't already. And I just want to make sure that the individuals being held in that facility are doing so under the appropriate standards of safety. I would like to clarify that what I observed was foam batting covering an exit on the parking lot side of the building. I observed it through a tinted window, the tinted film of which had seemingly aged until it peeled back and was apparently ripped away at some point. An exterior inspection without looking through that specific tear in the window tint would not be sufficient to see what I am describing. I would love to approach and take a picture for the council, but they have posted no trespassing signs in the past month. Additionally, we heard from a former pastor of the Community United Methodist Church during public comment just while you were away in, I think it was St. George, that she was also observing stacks of rags, papers, boxes, and general junk haphazardly stacked throughout the building when she was there with an immigrant member of her congregation. Throughout the past several weeks, I've made several inquiries to the appropriate county authorities on the advice of several members of this council. All but the sheriff's office have replied directing me to the city for information on these matters, and which is troubling considering it was admitted last week by the city that we don't even have an actual copy of the original cup. Additionally, I want to ground this conversation just a broader reality that we are now documented through federal data. These hold rooms are not isolated one-off facilities. They're part of a nationwide network. There's over 170 of them operating in warehouses, office parks, and sub-offices across the country. They are not held to the same standards as formal detention centers. They are not required to have beds. They are not required to have toilets. And while policy limits detention in these spaces to 72 hours on the federal level, we know that thousands of people have been held far longer, sometimes for weeks, even months. This is not a hypothetical concern. It is exactly the kind of environment that nationally has already produced documented violations, prolonged detentions, and unsafe conditions. We've produced that data that shows these violations have occurred right here in Ogden. This facility is a part of that same system. In New York, documented conditions of these types of rooms included windowless spaces, no beds, limited access to hygiene, and overcrowding, to the point where the federal judge had to step in and require basic standards. That same documentation showed over 120 children being held in these same types of facilities. In Colorado, a facility operating under a city-issued permit is now under investigation. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Creek.
Annie Dunaway, Ogden property owner. I made statements last week about the Utah renewable communities that caught some attention. So I want to start by saying I care deeply about sustainability and renewable energy. I am concerned about how we're choosing to pursue it. We cannot continue making agreements with the same systems and structures that contributed to the environmental and economic damage we are now trying to fix. That means we got to stop making deals with the devil. At some point, progress is not about moving faster in the same direction. It's about having the courage to stop, reassess, and change course. C.S. Lewis once wrote regarding progress, he said, "If you are on the wrong road, progress means turning around, making the person who turns back soonest the most progressive." If the systems we are working through continue to concentrate ownership, limit independence, and keep the public in a position of dependence, then we have to ask whether we are actually solving the problem or just repackaging it. There is also a deeper principle at play. John Locke wrote that the role of government is to protect people's rights, especially their ability to pursue property and ownership. So when we talk about energy infrastructure, we are not just talking about power generation. We're talking about who owns it, who benefits from it, and whether the public has any meaningful stake in what they are helping to fund. Utah Renewable Communities may be a step, but it is not a full solution. And right now, we do not have a comprehensive community-wide sustainability plan that brings pieces of the sustainability together. We are making decisions in pieces, energy here, development there, infrastructure somewhere else, without a unifying framework that defines what sustainability actually means for this community and how we intend to achieve it. That is a problem, because without a clear, integrated plan, even well-intentioned programs can move us into directions that do not align with long-term community resilience, ownership, or independence. If we move forward with the URC, it cannot stand alone. It should be part of a larger strategy, one that includes local ownership, resilience, land use, planning, food systems, energy systems, and real pathways for our residents to participate in and benefit from what we are building. Because sustainability is not just about energy sources. It's about whether our systems across the board actually strengthen the independence and well-being of the people who live here and the environment they live in. If we do not build that framework first, then we're not solving the problem. We're just reshaping it. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Hi, Teresa Bramwell. I guess if that other guy can call himself an Ogden resident, I can too, because I do have an address that I live in that has the city of Ogden. That's in Weber County, just like him.
Oh, we let people talk from other cities too. We just kind of curious where you're from.
Okay. I wanted to continue the conversation about Ogden's redevelopment agreements because, and I support the Exchange building. I do think it's a valuable building and it should be preserved. And I'm glad that we've found somebody that is willing to do it because I know it is a huge project. But myself, I have been living through the ramifications of a failed development agreement on 25th and Monroe for over 25 years. Ogden City was very impactful in what currently exists on 25th and Monroe, and I feel like it is a hot mess, and it's a total disaster. And I've had to live with it for 25 years, and I don't appreciate it. The things that I know about that happened was there was an apartment building between the smoke shop on the corner and the restaurant that's a little ways up 25th Street above Monroe. There used to be an apartment building there. Well, Ogden City tore that apartment building down, which is now a free parking lot. So anybody that wants to park for free, there's a great parking lot on between the smoke shop and the restaurant on just above 25th and Monroe, because Ogden City created that. And at the same time, there was supposed to be a huge development agreement to develop the whole block into 4-story apartments with commercial on the main level. That never happened. And whatever was supposed to happen with that original developer never happened. And the guy that bought the now vacant parking lot is real happy with his purchase because it was darn cheap and he gets a free parking lot out of it. But what did the rest of us in the block get? Well, I know right next door to me, I had 2 perfectly fine single-family homes that were occupiable that got turned into a Family Dollar. For some reason, that wasn't in any of Ogden's planning plans, nor was it even legal with the zoning that was there. They had to come before the city council to make that happen. And I have been a crime victim every day since that's been built, because the parking lot has never been policed, and there's plenty of drug dealers that know that. So, you know, it just never happens the way you think it's going to. Thank you.
Thanks, Teresa.
Hannah Wagner, Ogden resident. Apologies earlier for jumping ahead. I was watching online and I got a little passionate about the parking. And I know it seems like a very simple thing to pay for parking, but I am a long-term lover of Ogden and also have lived here for the past 7 years. It's the only affordable housing that myself and my husband could afford. And as minuscule as paying for parking seems in this economy, it is actually pretty cost consuming. One of the things that I was listening to, and again, I'm just a simple taxpayer. I do not have the time to go through every planning development or every document that the government or the council has been able to provide. I wish I could. I just don't have the energy as I am a full-time worker. One of my biggest concerns was there was a 2-hour limit for the ADA parking. On top of the paying for parking, I have a little sister who has spina bifida. She utilizes the handicap parking, and it is limited in the government restrictions or requirements as is. And I am concerned about what that means for a person that has parks in an ADA parking, and does that mean that person gets towed if they've been there for longer than 2 hours? Additionally, I pay a lot in taxes. I think this economy is hard enough on American citizens in general in the country. As a citizen of Ogden, I just wonder what kind of benefit I get from paying property taxes, sales taxes, and now I have to pay for parking in a community that I come to support, especially during our farmers markets and supporting our local business, especially downtown Ogden. And so it's just a big concern for me. And again, I'm not educated enough to spout out facts or anything. It's mostly coming from me as a consumer and paying my taxes. It's a huge concern for me that once we start charging, $1.50 per hour, it costs me the amount of a meal to park in Salt Lake City. And I don't even recommend Salt Lake City business or restaurants or anything to any of my coworkers that come travel in. I always recommend Ogden because it's just a great place in general, but the parking in general costs so much. So, we start with $1, it raises to more. So, thank you.
Thanks, Hannah.
Hi, Travis Pate. I had the unique opportunity to just see the Ogden City Mall. When we attempted to tear it down, we had to pay off the balance of the parking terrace, which was only a 20-year lease. We've now entered into an agreement with the Wonder Block for a 40-year lease. And so if we need to have to tear any of that down or there's other problems, then we had to pay off the parking terrace first. because the thing that's securing the parking terrace was the mall. The thing that was securing the mall was the parking terrace. So I think of those types of things. Ogden City Mall opened in 1980. You'll never see one of these again, and there's a parking meter. Yet we're proposing right now to say, nope, let's double tax our citizenry and say, you had to pay at the junction. Even though you've already paid, you've already had free parking. And we as a city chose to shut down private parking. Homer and Klomp had the ZCMI parking terrace. They had one east of Fred M. Nye Company, and they were a private enterprise with paid parking. And everybody's like, wow, wonderful. Look at what they're doing and look at how they made a business out of it. But then Ogden City came by and said, you know something, Homer Klomp, we're going to shut you down and build a parking terrace with free parking. And we're going to get rid of all our meters. And now we're going to say, oh, let's get meters, and we're not going to even be eco-friendly. They're going to require electricity. We're not going to have the old coin stop that are manual. We're not going to decrease our carbon footprint. We're going to increase our carbon footprint. We're going to say, you know something, we're going to pay a company to handle these transactions for us, and that's going to be a credit card fee. And yet we watch before Congress where Walmart and other multinational corporations get discounts from the credit card companies. How come we and every other municipality haven't said, you know something, here's our municipality and state and federal government association. We too, from the credit card companies, want a discount. So if someone's going to pay their $2 for parking, we as a city aren't paying 10% of that cost to a credit card company and paying another 20% to a company that's monitoring the parking for us. It's pretty asinine to me as far as I see it. I understand, and I see that they're Provo and Salt Lake, and there's other things that say no more than 2 hours on this block, so that even shifts the parking. I think that it can be handled. It can just be handled better. We could have a pay card. Here's a $100 chargeable pay card, one-time credit card transaction that can be used on any one of our parking meters, if that's the route we're choosing, or any one of our parking terraces. So I think that, to me, we're stepping 500 steps backwards and stepping over $2 to pick up a dime to try to manage parking. And as far as board member Washington, it says city council up here, but I think it says it's an RDA meeting. Let's use skills, restate, here's your concern. Yes, at what point do we reconvey that property instead of just allowing him to tear down the building and you just got a free windfall of property? So
Thanks,
thank you.
Travis.
Appreciate it. And I'll just give them that. So here's the magic card, which was 1980 for the Ogden City Plaza. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a hand online, David Willis.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Willis, Ogden resident. Can you hear me?
I think, okay, yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me? Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I haven't used this Zoom for this purpose. So anyway, in any event, I'm speaking about HB 411, the Community Renewable Energy Program. Wrote an opinion piece in the Standard Examiner about 3 years ago about all the problems related to it, the expense, the uncertainty. Basically, it's really going to be a tax effectively on people that are on a fixed income and the people that are maybe struggling financially, which is a lot more people right now. I was shocked to learn today that it isn't actually written. This piece of legislation, this regulation that is going to redefine generations, literally, financially, millions of dollars being sent out of the city each year is what it will grow to be, hasn't even been written. So we're debating and trying to consider, or the city council is trying to consider, and the rest of us out here in the public, a policy piece that doesn't actually exist in any kind of final form. So it can't be properly evaluated, properly vetted by the city council, by the community, and frankly, by people that would go through some type of formal regulatory analysis to actually see how much it's going to cost. Because $4 is an arbitrary number pulled out of the sky. There was $7, $8, $10. Nobody actually knows. And not only that, the rates, will be set by 19 boards, unelected people in different cities. If we're part of this, we'll be one of those that effectively will be working for Rocky Mountain Power, and they can raise the rates to whatever they choose, to build whatever they choose. And the Ogden City residents there's no direct benefit from that. And the concept that people are going to be opting out of it and they have some kind of a choice, how can you make a properly informed choice when you can't even read or consider the actual piece of legislation that is being considered to be passed in less than a month? It's impossible. It's impossible to make a responsible decision, in my opinion, for anybody, the city council or anybody else, without actually seeing in writing a final product that can be reviewed and actually analyzed in its entirety through a formal process. A typical legislative impact analysis, which is done on a regular basis, or a regulatory impact analysis. So that's the bottom line. There are so many unknowns, so many problems with this, so much uncertainty, and there's absolutely no transparency now that we don't even have the final piece of legislation. Anyway, thank you for your time. You guys do a great job, though, overall. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Another hand online is Angel Castillo.
Good evening. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I would like to thank the board for approving the RDA proposal for the Exchange building. I would also like to, again, thank Board Member Washington for her thoughtful and deep questions and what seems to be looking out for people. And I say what seems to be because I don't want to assume what she's thinking, but it feels like protection to me. It feels like she's asking questions about a system that has consistently trusted without verifying and has been, as Mayor Nadolski pointed out, we've had to clean up a lot of stuff from the past 3 terms of the previous administration. We've come to see that they didn't make the best deals, and not a lot of people were being looked out for. So I'm really, really glad, and I highly encourage the council members that, the board members that during the work session were really digging into this. And I'd like you to please keep digging, because just because we're questioning a process and you want to get the best result does not mean that you're being adversarial. It means you're doing your job. It means that you're trying to get the best deal for Ogden citizens, that we are holding on to. I'm highly encouraging you to hold on to as much land as we already have. It is a finite resource. Once it's gone, it's gone. And while Teresa Bramwell used the incorrect term, and when she was talking about the church, we should be looking at lease covenants. They are a thing. You can determine the use of the land in perpetuity. And the easier way to do that would to be start putting city land into a land trust, which means that you'll always have it, but yet you can still do public-private partnerships with businesses and let them own what they build and get taxes from what they build. So thank you for reviewing everything. Thank you for voting for the Exchange building, and please continue to keep asking questions, not just taking blind information and putting yourself out there to fully understand what's happening. And I don't necessarily think those discussions should take place in city council. I think work sessions are appropriate for that. But again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Angel. I think that concludes anybody that's wanting to give us public comment. Anybody like to address any of the comments?
I'll take a stab at a couple. Regarding URC, or Utah Renewables Community, and Annie left. Shoot.
She's gone.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, she referred to the devil, and I think what the meaning was in that is that's Rocky Mountain Power, which can be devilish. I think it's a monopoly. However, it's our monopoly, and they transmit power over their power lines. So if we're going to create a renewable energy system at scale, and we have an opportunity to borrow the monopoly's power lines, I think that's okay. And she's talking about sustainability, if it's the devil because they pollute. There was a day, too, when modern electrical production revolutionized this country, and people were amazed by it. Now we look back over our shoulder, and we know that coal isn't what we should be burning, but here's an opportunity for a clean solution. David spoke about rates being pulled out of the sky. That is not true. There were reams of data that were gone through by professionals, energy consultants, and legal, and those rates or the data was submitted to the Public Service Commission, not to Rocky Mountain Power, but to representatives who look out for our well-being and dealing with the monopoly, and they set the rate at $4. And David, if you're still listening, the 19 potential local organizations or cities that will maybe participate in this will not set rates. Rates will be set by the Public Service Commission, again, by someone that stands between us as consumers and a monopoly providing electricity to us. So there's safety in all of that. Legislative analysis, yeah, that was done by our legislature as it created House Bill number 411. No regulatory analysis, yes, there was. That's the Public Service Commission that spent a good deal of time over many years interacting with the Utah Renewable Communities Board in pulling all this information together. Teresa, thank you for the parking lot tip. I like that. I'm going to park there and take OGX downtown to avoid parking fees. And Ms. Wagner, you asked where your property tax and sales tax money was going and how that benefits you as a taxpayer. Those two things, I'm not going to get this right. I'll be smarter when we get the budget next month. But all of your property taxes go to either the fire department or the police department, and then they're gone. All of your sales taxes go to either the police department or the fire department, and they're gone. So what we get is public safety and security in Ogden City as a result of the property tax and the sales tax that we pay. So thanks for coming tonight. I really appreciate you being here. Come again.
Anyone else?
Chair, I just make a couple comments about the parking, maybe a little bit of a continuation of the work session when we talked about this. The parking, that was passed, that it's coming, and we talked a little bit about kind of the slow walking, the rollout of the parking, and there's been a lot of discussions. The initial map for the original rollout was quite a bit more expansive than what's being proposed at this point. So what that means, and Hannah, I'm happy to give this to you here, and I think it'll be available online as well, but there will be plenty of choices to park. The areas that currently experience the highest challenges, if you've ever drive down 25th Street at lunchtime, good luck. You don't find those spots, right? Electric Alley, maybe. I actually, lunchtime down on Kiesel, I don't think I ever see a parking spot available. And so, but just right around the corner, there's going to be a parking garage, and there still is a parking garage that's free parking. On the street on 24th Street, there's parking that's going to be free for 2 hours, right? So these are all, I think this rollout is being done in a way to address the highest challenges, the areas where we see the biggest problems. But very close by, there are plenty of choices to park for free. And so if you're interested in seeing those stalls turn over more often, the parking rollout plan is intended to make that happen so that if you want to go down to lunch on 25th Street and you're willing to spend $1.50 or $2 to park for a couple hours, you'll have that opportunity, and hopefully that will work that way. I get and understand that as we develop this, that there's a lot of data we don't have that we'll get over the time throughout the implementation of the parking. But that to me is, when I see this, one of my concerns has been, we made commitments when we made some the development with the Wonder Block and the parking garage, that there are financial commitments there, and one of the concerns has been, are we relying too heavily on BDO lease revenues to maintain that? And I think that is a cost of maybe rolling this out a little bit slower, but maybe it's worth it if we can introduce a product or an opportunity to get people into our downtown and eliminate some of the challenges that we see with these particular areas that are currently high use areas. And so I know there's still plenty of discussion on that, but I think when we think about parking in our downtown, there are plenty of opportunities to park for free. And hopefully this rollout will give us opportunities to park in the higher traffic areas with a little bit more reliability.
Thank you. Yes, Board Member Myers.
Thank you. I just want to address Travis Pate's concern about credit card fees and discount fees. I'd like to visit with you afterwards about that particularly, but I have negotiated as a businessman several times with credit card companies and processing companies about what I would pay as what they call discount fees. But in their terminology, in their vernacular, whenever I've dealt with them, the discount fee is what is taken out of what the payment that I receive that they keep for me to have the privilege of using a credit card or receiving funds from a credit card. So I would like to discuss that a little bit further with you, because if I can work out a deal where I get paid for accepting a credit card, that would be really awesome. Because usually I'm always paying those discount fees, which means I discount what I have for them to be able to receive some of the income that is my income that I pay for them to be able to receive the payment on the services or products that we sell. So I'm very curious as to what you have to say about that. But my experience with discount fees is they're payments that businesses make to be able to receive the funds from a credit card company, and they refer to them as discount fees that the credit card company keeps for processing that financial transaction. So anyway, thanks for bringing that up. I'm curious to talk to you afterwards.
Okay. Executive Director.
Thank you. I had a thought while we were having our meeting tonight. Ogden's a really amazing city. It's interesting when you see a lot of the same people and you recognize faces, and it's amazing how many times you agree with some people and disagree. Sometimes I think the world's painted to where we're convinced that we have to always disagree with certain people because they're on one side, and that we have to always agree with these people because they're on one side. And tonight I saw people that I sometimes often disagree with, that I agree with. And it just happens in this town. We're just an interesting bunch, you guys. It's a cool town. We disagree heartily, and we continue to build city heartily. I'll just say that. I've got a few things I'll cover, and I'm going to defer to staff to help me on a couple of these things. But on I guess it's called the URC now. I still have a habit of calling it the CREA. But
it's new again, Mayor.
Yeah, I know. I've said for a long time that I was concerned about the cost, and I was concerned about certainty. I was concerned about lower income residents on this issue, on this proposal. I still have concerns remaining about the certainty element. I really don't. It's hard for me to understand what the future is with this. That's still a concern. It's become more clear as to what the cost is going to be, and the $4 is a pretty nominal amount in the big picture. So that gave me more comfort than the numbers I was hearing in the past. The thing that is a little irksome for me is that $4 is intended to be paid for for burdensome bureaucracy for an agency that just doesn't want to own the program that they supported. And they're asking our residents to offset the cost that would otherwise be to them to administer a program and a product that that they have an obligation to provide. So that's just one of my concerns. But the thing that is has become clear to me that, and I've gotten more pushback around this program than I expected, is because what I've learned in this job is that there is an ecosystem of organizations that masquerade as policy experts that are actually political arms. And they are, a 501c3 may seem innocuous and innocent, but when it's attached to a 501c4 and a 527 and a PAC, and that they lobby and that they have such influence over our information, you guys, and you understand this more when you become the target of it all, is they create and set a narrative that appears to be fact. And then they pretend to be policy expert. And I'm just becoming more and more concerned about the narrative that's been set around the program. And I want facts. I want to hear the other side. So I'm thankful for those that are bringing contrary information, because I think it's the first time that we've actually seen that with this program. And I think that's very healthy. And it gets back to the original point of how incredible Ogden is, that we just, we have people that agree and we disagree, but we all live here and we make it work somehow. So thank you to the council for their efforts you're making to receive the input on the program. It's quite a confusing program. Honestly, I go back and forth about it. So the information that you guys get back from the public will be helpful for me too. Hannah, I wanted to tell you, you said, I'm sorry that I didn't read all this stuff. I just want to tell you, you shouldn't have to apologize. Like, you shouldn't even have to go back and read 1,000 pages of documents. We should have to, because that's what we're paid to do. It's actually what I prayed to be able to do. And so that's my responsibility, and it's ours. And we're happy to do that for you. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that we inherited a metric ton of projects that were unfinished. This is one of them. Actually, when I was on the council, I voted against the parking proposal at the time. And I just wanted to share, I have come to learn in this job that, I'm never obviously going to make everybody happy. Quite comfortable with that. But there are a lot of businesses out there in Ogden that are begging for this. They're not very vocal, honestly. It's just how I think it's like a human nature thing. They might become vocal if they realize that they might lose it here. But just today, I talked to a business owner that's very frustrated with me right now because it's not done yet. And so I do get a lot of input like that. And I think you guys will probably start to hear some of that too. But there are very mixed opinions on it. There's no doubt. Laura, the proposals that we are putting before the public now have changed. And it is 100% in response to what we've been hearing from businesses. The businesses told us information that I was actually personally pretty surprised at the paradigm we got back, because we thought that they would be more concerned around the customer piece, but we got a lot of input about employees, and that they were more concerned about how we were going to manage parking for employees and how much we would charge, et cetera, and how convenient it would be, what would the safety elements be, et cetera. And that was a huge paradigm shift for me in my thinking, and I think it was for a lot of my team, to go back and put fees and processes in place that really made sure that we took care of that element of it. And I think that was super helpful. That did cause delays, no doubt. But I just wanted to throw that out there as one of the big paradigms that put a pretty big change in this whole thing. And we have had some public outreach, but that's essentially what we're doing now, is we're really engaging the public for the public side of the input. I'll have to catch you after.
Yeah, you're going to have to talk with him after the meeting's over. Yeah.
So anyway, with that said, I'll reach to staff. If you guys could come up, I don't know if you want Emil or Lisa to come up, either way. Maybe help address the ADA question or concern, as well as the debt burden that was asked about the residents at Wonder Block, et cetera. You probably have more notes than I did.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so the debt burden is about $4 million a year on the Wonder Block. The initial proposal, as you remember, did show within 10 years being able to cover that through the managed parking. That is an amenity. It will help with parking in the downtown area. It was also part of our bond covenants that we would implement a managed parking system. And so what we've done through community feedback is we've modified the implementation plan. So it is a much narrower area that we're implementing. We would like to move forward making decisions for growth based on the data we collect. I've lost my train of thought. I really do apologize. I will just maybe address the ADA question, and maybe that will come back to me. Just talking to Daniel Gillies, our traffic engineer outside of council, we do have ADA stalls on 25th Street. They were allowed by Mayor Caldwell. On street, ADA stalls are not required. That requires an exception to make those because it makes the parking not uniform. So I think we're very open to looking at ADA stalls and how to address those. I know that we have some improvements planned with Electric Alley, hopefully in coordination with the Marriott Hotel. We're still negotiating with them. And we do have ADA stall places identified for ADA stalls close to the businesses. Has been some of the feedback we've received. Any other questions?
I think one of the questions was, would they be towed?
No, not unless they're abandoned vehicles that sit on the street for whatever the code enforcement. It would be a ticket. Thank you.
I think it's also important to point out that there are downtown lots that are private lots that have implemented parking programs that we have no control over. It'd be ideal if we could all work together and use the same app and everything, but that's an effort that the city's putting forward to try and address that.
Yeah, and we did reach out a little bit at the first. It was really hard to sell businesses on coming into the Ogden City, management without a system set up to invite them to be part of. So we do hope to re-engage and see if we can move the needle on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And I know that as part of the proposal, there's a 15-minute period that would be free. That was one of the requests that came from businesses. There's a lot of people that just stop in and pop out, pick something up, head out. And they wanted a really high turnover there without having to go through the process of the parking app. And I think that the ADA piece, at least what I recall, is that if it's 15 minutes free for jumping in, jumping out, it would be 2 hours in the ADA for free for the same reasons. If we need to expand that, totally open to that. That's something I'm happy to consider, at least on my side. I've learned that the council is open and an open ear and an open mind to a lot of those things too. I wanted to mention that, and this is something that is on my mind. I don't know if it's been on anybody else's mind, but it's a paradigm that I want to share tonight quickly, is that I'm going to present my proposed budget to the council here on, I think, May 5th. Mm-hmm. What you'll find is that we use BDO lease revenue to do capital improvement projects. What that means is we do things like parks upgrades and playground equipment, ball field upgrades, etc., with CIP funds from the BDO lease revenue. And so the more revenue that we are using, I think it was Councilmember Ritchie that mentioned it, the more revenue we use to pay for the debt burden from BDO is less money we can put towards those things. So I am very much of the thinking when I inherited this that I want as much of it to be offset by fees as I can so that we can make sure we maximize our investments in our open space and parks and things like that. So I do hope that people that come downtown to support our local businesses, they're looking for the most convenient, that are willing to pay for that convenience right on the front, kind of what I call pole position parking, would be willing to have a nominal fee for that and create the turnover and the churn that the business owners are asking us for. While recognizing, however, that we have opportunities that range from free to fee. If you want to walk a little ways, you can be free. If you want to be right up front, there's a small fee. But I just want to put it out there that if we don't have a fee to recoup some of this for the debt burden that we've inherited, we need to make sure we get as much as we can so that we can invest in our other elements for the community, because those are the things that people also want our city. Finally, moving on from parking. Thanks for the help, you guys. The fire inspection, yeah, there you are. I told you last week I was more than willing to, and I did it. So we've got our fire chief here, Chief Mike Slater. He's happy to come give us an update. Thanks.
Sorry you had to stay so long to give this little report.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. My wife doesn't like me right now anyway. So, yes, under the direction of the mayor and the city administration, we did perform a fire inspection on the entire structure, not just the ICE facility, but every occupant of that building. We found nothing significant. When we do a fire inspection, we look at life safety issues like fire separations inside of the building, extinguishing systems such as fire extinguishers, fire sprinkler systems, means of egress, addressing, lighting, extension cords. And I directed the fire marshal to do that inspection on all occupants of that building, and he did. There are minor infractions, no life safety infractions that we could find within that structure by multiple tenants. We have reached out to the property owner to get some of those remedied, and had given him the 14-day notice to get those fixed, like we do with any other business owners. So nothing really to report, but it was done, and we did it in accordance with what we do with every other business. So.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Also, had a gentleman reach out to me, offered to help clarify some of the data was collected and analyzed, and help make us more clear on how they arrived at the findings that they did, and asked if I'd be willing to hear them out. Of course I am. So in the issues of expediency, however, because my calendar sucks, I've asked a staff member to reach out and see what we can learn about the data that was collected. So happy to do that as well. That was from an item from last week. And other than that, thank you, Ogden. Love you. And thanks for letting me have the blessing of be the mayor.
Mayor, I'm curious if the fire inspection also included an updated layout of the entire facility, since the chief did an inspection, the fire marshal did an inspection of the entire building. Is there something updated on file opposed to the specs that we have? Sorry, my mind.
Yeah, they didn't do an updated rendering of the building. So as far as like the businesses in there and the property lines, all that, they didn't do anything with that, which is not typical for a fire inspection.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and Councilmember Myers just asked about the fire sprinklers, and it was noted that everything that my questions asked if the facility has had a sprinkler system. So.
There is a sprinkler system in that building.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, and I read that in the reports that were sent over. So thank you.
So you're done, Mayor? Okay, great. All right, board members, board member comments before we go in. I think we're going to reconvene our work session until Dave goes to sleep. So
Alicia might beat me there.
I'm in
Quick,
theater. I'm
just-
revving up. We come alive at 10.
I don't know, you lost track of the thought there.
I just have one quick follow-up, and thank you, Mayor, for all the follow-up on the issues the public brought. I appreciate that. One thing you mentioned, and I look forward to looking into this, and was the administrative fees along with the URC. Councilmember or Board Member Graff, do you happen to, and if you don't know this, I'll come back and we'll get it later, but what the percentage of that $4 or what, it's a very nominal amount that goes to the administrative fees, and the bulk of that is going to actually facilitate building of solar infrastructure, so that we can put that into the grid.
You're right on that. So $4 will get split three ways on our bills. The first 12 cents will go to support those that economically qualify for offsets of their utility bills. So this is the HELP or the HEAT program with Rocky Mountain Power. So 12 cents goes there. And then the remainder, and I don't know exactly what the percentages are, but one split goes to Rocky Mountain Power to build new software systems for billing purposes and new measurement systems and administration. And I think that's $820,000 total. And then the remainder of it gets split to build the infrastructure that will actually provide the power in the form of solar farms. The solar farms, there's 3 accepted bidders. One of them would put a facility. He's got 2 proposals. Either one of them would go up here by Brigham City, one in Kane County, one is proposed in Wyoming. So yeah, and they actually speculate that the $4 will go down to a lower rate rather than up after we're underway with the infrastructure and the administrative part of Rocky Mountain Power's requirements are met. So the $4 is front-loaded, and they expect that, and the Public Service Commission said that in their document, that they anticipate that the rate should go down.
Thank you, Board
Thank
Member
you.
Graff, and I'll get that specific number to you. We'll find that as well. Just wanted to get clarity on that. So thank you, appreciate you.
Well, we do have one more work session.
Yes, for sure.
And we will have Ogden's sustainability manager there. And we also have the opportunity to bring, I think, the young lady from Summit County, who has been deep into this for 6 or 7 years, also as backup. So we've got an opportunity for more learning and to get more questions answered before we will hear it in the public.
I just was going to say, I think we can't know how much is going to go to build the renewable because the 800,000 is sort of a fixed amount, but the rest really depends on the opt-out. So we don't know, what the opt-out rate is. If it's higher than, that's what we need to learn. Like and then we wouldn't know that until it's all implemented, right?
Yeah, and for that too, this will implement, let's say, roughly the first of the year, if it's passed by this council or by any other council. And one city already has. What's the town down by Zion? Is it Springville or Springdale? Springdale passed it last week. Summit County will hear it tomorrow night, and they expect a vote. So that's a big one. But what they'll do is once it's implemented, and that'll be about the first of the year for the cities that take this on, then that period of time where people can opt out will take place, and simultaneously the builder of the infrastructure will start. But they won't overbuild this thing. It won't be done being built until about 2030, and by that time, those participating in it will have stabilized, and they will have built to that stable number of people that have stayed in the program and want to take advantage of the clean energy.
Any other board member comments? Okay, well, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We got a motion by Board Member Myers, seconded by Board Member Lundell to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? I didn't think so. All right, we will reconvene our work session. So make haste. Don't dilly-dally.